Hallo Freunde, da bin ich wieder. Heute haben wir eine doppelte Konrad Shootout. And as I just said, but in a different language, today we'll be comparing two Konrads, Noodler's Konrad. I like the Konrad in Ebonite that I recently got. Before that I had the Resin model. You may have seen my review of that. I had some issues with it. It's just that simple. One of the things that I don't really like is that, I'll address that later again, but the cap and the nib are really tight. So if you don't push in the nib exactly as far as it should be, you run the risk of bending it when you cap the pen. The Ebonite version may have that problem too. It seemed to be a little less pronounced to me, judging by the threads on the cap. In any case, I thought we just have to compare the two. Now, I've done separate reviews of these two pens, so you can check those out if you want more details. Clearly, the Resin version is made of resin, and the Ebonite version is made of Ebonite. If you look at them side by side, because I don't really want to go into all the details of the pen, I have separate reviews for that. If you look at the two pens together, then you will see that the Ebonite version is quite a bit larger than the Resin version. It's just a bit taller, and it's not just the cap that definitely is a bit of the issue. As you can see, the Ebonite cap is just a little bigger, but it's also the pen itself. As you can see here, the Ebonite version is just a bit bigger. It has a somewhat bigger section. It has nib that is just the same size, so that's not it. It's really part of the pen. As to weight, well, the Ebonite version may be a little bit heavier, but I don't think there's a huge difference there. And that's pretty much all there's to it. So if you want a somewhat bigger version of the Konrad with the flex nib and all that, you probably want to get the Ebonite version, which comes in a very nice finish. And if you want a smaller version that's really portable, you may want to get the Resin version, and that's pretty much all there's to it. So what I'll do next is I'll show you how to take the two apart, and then I'll do a writing sample, and then we're done. So I hope that's going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Alright, so there we go. Konrad versus silicone grease. No, wait, that's not actually a pen. Now, so here we have two Konrads. We have the Ebonite version, and we have the regular Resin version. I definitely prefer this pen, but right now I want to show you how to take them apart. Let's start with the original Resin version. The Noodler's pens are fairly known for their disassemblability, if that is a word. It's easy to take them apart, and that is, they're completely user serviceable, and I highly applaud that. I think that is an excellent way to market your pens. The fact that you can tinker with them does not mean you have to. So, I mean, it's not absolutely necessary to start cutting deeper grooves in your feet or whatever. If you don't want to do that, then that is absolutely fine, of course. So what I've just done is I have uncapped the pen. Notice that look at this ink window, and then look what happens when I screw the cap in place. So that metal band sort of extends a little bit beyond the ink window, and as you can see, there is very little space for the nib. So be very careful. You can take out the nib and the feed. They are friction fit, but if you don't push them in all the way back, and you think, oh, that's pretty tight, let's do that, then the nib may extend beyond the cap, and if you screw it in place, you're going to bend the nib. I tell you this from experience, and I don't want that to happen to you, so listen to what I say and be careful. Okay, then we have a blind cap, which you just screw off, and you have the piston unit. You can see that moving down there. You see that right there with the ink window. There we go. It moves up and down. What you can do is grab this bit, so not the actual piston turning knob, but this bit with the threads. Hold it tightly. Just unscrew the barrel, and there you go. The piston housing unit and the actual piston, and you can just squeeze out the turn the knob a bit, and you will push out the actual piston. Put some silicone grease on this right there if you don't think that the piston operates that smoothly anymore. And if you want to put it back together, please note that there are two notches there. I'm not sure how well you can see them, but there are notches, one right here and one right there, and there are two grooves on the inside of the piston housing unit. So if it doesn't fit, you're doing something wrong. You just need to turn it a bit, and there you see it just slides in there. And that's all there's to it. So it's super easy to actually take care of this and get that piston in there. Once it's you got this, just put it back in. Again, make sure you grab the threads, not the piston turning knob. You can screw the barrel back in place. I'm going to be a little careful here, using the nib and feed, because I may have gotten some silicone grease on my fingers, so be careful. And as you can see, I just push the nib in just a bit further than I would probably usually do, and then just do a quick check. That looks like it's going to work, and yet I will be very careful. No, there is no resistance. The nib is set in the correct manner as it is. Okay, blind cap back in place. Well, I'll go through the motions again on the Ebonite pen, but it's the same build, so it's just the same system. You can grab the nib and feed, pull them out. They are friction fit. Probably best not to try and twist them around too much, because you don't want to bend the nib tines or twist them somehow. A blind cap, and again this piston unit, you see I can move it. It's right there. And I can just unscrew that, and there we go. And it's the same thing. Again, you can pull this out. Again, two notches and two grooves in there. Carefully align that and just start screwing the piston turning knob, and you should be done. So that's really all there's to it. It's a super simple design. Very, very nice. I absolutely love this. I think it's a great way to make a pen that is so user serviceable, which is wonderful. So I'll put that back together. That's a little bit more difficult with this Ebonite pen, but there we go. Nothing is bent, nothing is twisted. Quick check, looks good to me. I think there was just a little bit more space in the Ebonite version for the nib. And not a whole lot, but just a little bit, making it just a little bit easier to not bend the nib. As you can see, I'm careful again, but it fits just well. I can feel no resistance. I'm not hitting, the cap is not getting snagged on the nib. So that's all there's to it. So next thing I'll do is I'll ink them up. For that, I can't really show you, but I'll be using my Visconti traveling inkwell, which has my last bit of Waterman Florida blue in there. I put the pen in there, I turn it around, operate the piston. There we go. To do that a couple of times, should probably first operate the piston, because now I was pushing air back in there. There you go. A nice fill, good enough. All the ink I need. Take the other one, get the blind cap off. I'm doing this single-handedly, so forgive me if it doesn't really work. Whoops, and there we go. Another fill. And that's all there's to it. So, I'm going to do a writing sample. Alright, so we have a resin Konrad. I'm not going to write down Konrad if you don't mind. And we have an Ebonite Konrad. The Ebonite Konrad's nib is a little scratchier. The reason is that the resin nib I've already worked on. The result of that is also that it has become a little broader, unflexed. So we have the quick brown fox that jumps. And here we also have a brown fox. The ink, as I said, is Waterman Florida Blue, now known as Serenité. Both pens perform well, but of course what you really want to see is the flex. Nice, juicy, and after a bit of flexing it runs dry. And we get some railroading. So the thing to do is to get that blind cap off, get a bit of ink down the feed, and then you try again. Make sure it also makes it into the nib slit. There we go. For obvious reasons I wouldn't recommend doing this in your office papers. And now it's a lot better. You see there's a lot more flexing going on without the nib actually running dry. A little bit of railroad or sort of skipping there, but that's okay. So there you have it. And then we have the same thing for the Ebonite, which has just been left uncapped, so I'll just make sure it writes. There we go. As you see, that railroads too. So I'll give that the same treatment. I'll just, what did I do to that bit of blotting paper? Well, it seems to have gone, doesn't matter, I'll take some other blotting paper. Squeeze out some ink. And as you can see, this one too becomes very wet. No real issues. Beautiful, juicy, wet line. No problems returning to the original very fine line with no pressure. So for those of you guys who can really do copper plate, I cannot, but I guess you can get some really nice line variation out of this. And again, down to railroading. Now this may be because of oil of my hand. I didn't have my plastic shield handy. So there you have it. Which one is better? I prefer the Konrad in Ebonite. Give it to me any day of the week. I didn't care that much for the resin version, but I think this just looks very, very cool, and it performs very, very well. But of course the resin version will appeal to some people, and that's fine too. Two really nice pens. I hope you enjoyed the Shootout. I hope this helped you decide on which one you need to get if you want to get it. And that's all there's to it. So I'll see you later. Bye bye.